As leaders in Washington continue their negotiations on a final stimulus bill, we're gathered today to discuss the vital role that county government has in response to this pandemic and what will happen to our communities should the federal government fail to provide unrestricted aid to county governments. So why are we doing this press conference today? Well, today is the day for the scheduled recess of the United States Senate. That's why we are here today. And as I think about this day, think about a quote attributed to the famous philosopher Sophocles: "One must wait until the evening to see how splendid the day was." And that's where we find ourselves today. County governments have been managing the quarantine, the enforcement, the support, the emergency response, the 911 services. County governments have been running testing facilities. County governments have been running tracing operations. County governments have been providing food assistance to families and seniors. Counties have stepped up to get the job done, all while facing unprecedented fiscal challenges. The pandemic caused what we called an economic quadruple threat: declining sales tax as much as high as 30%, declining severe hotel occupancy taxes, other revenue to the tune of $13.5 billion over 2 fiscal years, $9 billion impacting the city of New York and $4.5 impacting the counties around the state of New York. Higher and increased spending necessary to respond to the health emergency, loss of jobs and business activity in our community, threatening our property tax base. And the fourth and most severe, cuts in state reimbursement for state mandated programs and services continue to loom over us. These cuts have been aimed at social services, mental health, addiction, probation, across the board services that are needed now more than ever as people struggle with the stress and financial upheaval caused by the pandemic. It's time for the president, it's time for the congressional leaders to come together and compromise on a plan that provides state, counties, and local governments and school districts with direct and flexible aid they need to protect jobs and keep COVID-19 under control. And with that opening statement, I'd like to turn now to the president of the County Executives Association of the State of New York and the County Executives Association of America, the Albany County Executive, Dan McCoy.
We need to unmute Dan.
Oh, Dan is muted. Hold on. We need to unmute him.
I'm trying to unmute him here.
Thank you.
There we go. Dan, you're unmuted now.
Is that better?
Yes, we can hear you now, County Executive.
You think after 6 months we wouldn't have these technical problems, right? So I do want to say to Steve, to you and your staff at NYSAC, thank you for your leadership and making this all happen. To the Congress personnel on this, thank you. I know you got a tough road ahead of you. I know the fight in DC. I've said this 1,000 times. This is not about Republican, Democrat, conservative, working families, citizen action. We're in this together as New Yorkers. We're in this together on a national level. And we got to put the bipartisan aside to do what's right for the people to go forward. And the only way this is going to happen is by working together and holding the Senate, Republicans, and everyone else accountable to what has to happen with the HEROES Act. You know, we're looking at over $3 trillion that we need now on the forefront. And not to talk for the other county executives, you know, we set up mobile testing sites, the tracing, all this stuff we're doing and been doing through this COVID-19, and now dealing with this crisis, financial crisis, and not knowing what the governor and the Senate and Assembly are going to do with next year's budget, and already looking at doing cuts in October, it's going to hurt us operating going forward into making difficult decisions, because most of our budgets are due now, are going to be due in September, they're going to be due in October, and not knowing what the budget director for New York State is going to do in October if the state of New York doesn't get bailed out. But I want to say to everyone that's been pushing forward and lobbying for us down in DC. Thank you. I really do mean that. And again, looking at the possibility of losing over $1.3 billion in upstate New York with sales tax revenue and everything else, it's tough decisions are ahead of us. And with the cap that we have on us from the state, tied into not just raise the age, but tied into the cap on Medicaid, tough decisions are going to be made. And if you go over the cap, then you got to add more millions of dollars on top of what we already lost. So, Steve, thank you. And everyone on this, thank you for your input and your guidance of working with each other in a partnership. Because the only way we're going to get through this is in a true partnership of rolling up our sleeves, leaving all the egos at the door, and saying this is about the people we represent, this is about the state of New York, it's about our great country, and the only way we're going to do this is not caring what party affiliation you are or where you stand anywhere in the pecking order. It's going to mean working together. So thank you.
Thank you very much, County Executive McCoy, for taking care of the people of Albany County and the state of New York and all across the United States with your leadership in Washington, D.C. Let's go to Jack Marin, Chair of the Ontario County Board of Supervisors and the President of NYSAC. I know, Jack, that you wanted to say a few things, and then you were going to introduce the members of the congressional delegation that were with us. Oh, we have to unmute Jack. Sorry, hold on, Jack. Hold on, we have to unmute you.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Thank you,
Good to
Jack.
go.
Jack
Okay.
Marin.
Well, Steve, thank you. Dan, I want to thank you certainly for your leadership and certainly the numerous press conferences you've had with your colleagues, county executives throughout the state. So thank you, and certainly advocating throughout outside of New York State as well on our behalf. Yeah, Steve, it's certainly been, wasn't too long ago, we had our July 29th County Leaders Call, certainly, and throughout this entire, starting back when the governor's executive budget came out, we've been convening when needed, and certainly can't thank NYSAC enough for that as well. And again, I want to just give a shout out certainly to yesterday, an announcement that our shout out to our farming community, that the counties want to recognize the farmers, what they've done to help feed our residents throughout our state. So again, thank you to all of our members on this call, and please pass that along to your farming communities within each and every one of your counties. Ladies and gentlemen, I've had the good pleasure of knowing this gentleman. Certainly, we know he spent many years in our state government, and for some unknown reason, he thought he would like to expand and go into the next chapter in his life as a congressman. And at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce, representing the 25th District, Congressional District, Mr. Joe Morelle.
Hold on, hang on, Congressman. We have to get you unmuted there. I think it's on our end, Joe. Okay, looks like you're good to go, sir.
Good morning. First and foremost, Steve, thank you and your staff for all the incredible work that you're doing. You and I go back a long way. I have tremendous respect for the work that you've done over the years, and I know this is a particularly difficult time. And I do want to give a shout out to Jack Marin. Thanks for the kind introduction. I'm not sure myself a lot of days, Jack, why I'm in Washington, but I am, and it's a great challenge. And also to my friend Dan McCoy, who leads Monroe County, or Albany County, Albany County, which was my home away from home for so many years. And Dan's a great friend and doing a great job. I'm pleased to be on the call with my colleagues, Kathleen Rice from Nassau County. Kathleen, nice to see you. And of course, Tom Reed, who, we share a border between our districts. He represents the southern tier. Look, these are difficult times. I've had the great privilege in my life, of a professional life, of being a county legislator, a state legislator, and now a federal legislator. So I understand the perspective from all sides, perhaps in sort of a unique situation, and work very, very closely with my county executive, Adam Bello, who's been a longtime friend of mine. So, we talk daily about the challenges that the counties face. I do think this, and Dan, I agree with you. We need a bipartisan solution. And frankly, I've spent my whole life, most of my professional career in the state legislature, where I served as majority leader of the assembly, but worked often daily with my colleagues in the Senate, which for decades was a Republican majority. So, reaching across the aisle is second nature to me. I have to say, having said that, I'm frustrated, and I think probably many of you are. The Senate has just not taken a leadership role here relative to state and local financing in particular. I mean, Speaker Pelosi has said for months, and obviously you see evidence of this in the HEROES Act, that state and local financing has got to be our top priority. And it's not just because we love all of you, although we do, and it's not just to help governments. It's because the impact that you have on the daily lives of people at risk, people who struggle. Obviously, the counties have enormous responsibility around social services, Medicaid financing, provision of those services at the state level, whether it's education, local school districts. And I understand the governor's announced that schools will be open for those for whom that it's appropriate. And not only their schools, but what they do for local governments, county, cities, towns, villages. And then there's, of course, all the local agencies that rely on state funding as well, the not-for-profits who serve the developmentally disabled, et cetera. So, I've been frustrated. Frankly, I've been frustrated with the White House and the response by the president to the plight of state and local governments. And I don't think, honestly, I'll say I served at, as I said, at both levels of government before coming to Congress. I don't really think it's necessary for the Congress to micromanage what state and local governments do. You have enough mandates at the state level. I'm very familiar with them. I don't think we ought to be telling different levels of government what to do with their money. I think we're in a unique position. We can borrow money in the middle of a crisis when other forms of government, other levels cannot. And frankly, the cost of money right now, I hate to say it this way, but it's relatively inexpensive by historical measures. And so this really is the opportunity. Most economists I've read about think that the worst thing we could do now is to have a small response instead of a large, robust federal response. So we're going to continue to fight for this. I hope that every member of Congress will continue to support state and local funding. I know that we in the House majority have been fighting for this. We'll continue to fight, and I pray we get some resolution, as you said, Steve, today. But I hope the Senate doesn't leave and go home. I mean, I don't think there's a way for people to go on break, no matter how you define that break. We're back in our districts right now, the House, but we're in meetings like this all day long, and we're continuing to work. So we're ready at a moment's notice, and I don't want to go on longer than that. I know you want to hear from Tom and certainly Kathleen, but I appreciate everything you're doing, and we're going to continue to join the fight.
Thank you, Congressman Joe Morelle from the New York Congressional 25th District in Monroe County, New York. I see Jack Marin is still is muted here. Jack, do you want me to introduce the Congressman Tom Reed from the Congressional District 23rd? I see that you're muted. There you go, Jack.
Okay.
Jack, that's the first time I've ever heard you be muted. I'm not.
Okay, Jack Reed, Jack Marin, please introduce Congressman Tom Reed for us.
Well, Tom, and I want to state this, and I know, Steve, you've mentioned it, and certainly I think all of our county leaders throughout on this call have said it more than once, is the fact that our entire New York State federal delegation have been champions of our state and advocating for us since day one, regardless of party line. So thank you all for doing that. And certainly I've had the good fortune of knowing this individual since he announced he was going to run for Congress many years ago, over a decade ago. Congressman Tom Reed. Tom has been a champion, certainly, for all of us, as I mentioned. And also, I want to mention that the 27th District had a vacancy for a while, and Tom was a champion. He adopted the 27th District until this recent special election. So at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the 23rd Congressional District Congressman, Mr. Tom Reed.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope I'm coming through loud and clear here. I'm traveling in the district through the Finger Lakes, heading towards Joe Morelle's district, but I won't be entering that district today. But it's good to be with my colleagues. As always, we do have a great working relationship. And I've been 100% supportive of local aid, working with the state and local aid proposals that are out there, the SMART Act, other legislation that I work with Bill Cassidy and Senator Menendez on. And I will just tell you where I see it right now is we have a situation where politics is driving this decision. Politics, there's this sense, from my understanding, of people in the room that was negotiating. It was at the White House on Tuesday, talking with different folks. Was at the signing ceremony for the Great Outdoors Act, which is a great piece of conservation legislation. But talking with folks there, there's a sense that folks think that politically doing this deal doesn't benefit the Republican Party. And the Democrats feel politically that this is a good political position that they want to be in. And so that's the sense from our side of the aisle that what's going to happen is this is going to collapse. And that's dire. I don't want to see that happen. I don't support that. I'm advocating because I know firsthand that proposals have been put on the table where relief can be delivered to local governments as well as states, and they won't take yes for an answer. And this is not about getting the HEROES Act. I mean, that's a $3 trillion bill. I mean, I guess if we print money endlessly, we can do $20 trillion and everybody would be happy and everything would be copacetic. But you got to deal with reality. And the reality is right now, I'm so disappointed and frustrated that folks are not putting country first during this crisis, and they're putting politics. And it's a pox on the entire institution. Congress is failing America right now. And I would just tell you, as somebody, it is hear a lot of great rhetoric. We need bipartisan work. We need to be working together. But then when push comes to shove, the leaders who are talking that language don't show up. And right now, I think we're going to have about 2 weeks of additional uncertainty in regards to state and local aid and the whole package. And, I know that the Senate left yesterday. They are on 24-hour notice, just like the House. So the principals are going to be negotiating. I've encouraged our leadership and others in the White House to continue to stay in the room as long as it takes, and do what's right for the American people. And I'll just tell you, it's frustrating to see this. I've been here 10 years. And this is one of the periods of time where I am very disappointed in the institution and the members of Congress that are playing politics with this crisis. And it should be a shame on everyone in regards to where we find ourselves today. So I think you're going to hear a lot of negative headlines over the next 2 weeks. You're going to see some very negative consequences that are going to result from this. But then, as I always believe, the sun comes up. I'm the eternal optimist. I'm the youngest of 12. My father passed when I was 2, and my mom had a choice. She could have either given up, walked away, or what she did is she cried for an hour, and she came back and took care of us and told us the sun will rise up and we'll move forward. So I'm of that makeup. I will do my part to support this, push this, and I will call out folks that want to play politics with this. But at the end of the day, this is going to take true leaders to step up and say no more politics. And it doesn't have to be one way or the highway. This is really something we should be able to agree upon relatively easily in regards to this deal. Everyone knows what needs to be done. Everybody knows the parameters of what we're looking at. And because of politics right now, the message I'm delivering to you today is that we're gonna have 2 weeks, in my opinion, of some very turbulent times. So, wish I had a better message for you. Other than I'll do my part. I work with anyone, as you know. I work across the aisle because I believe in it. I believe that we're at our heart all Americans. We're not Democrats. We're not Republicans. We wear those titles when we go into the political battles. But at the end of the day, our job is to represent America and make sure that she's strong, especially in times such as this, when her future is literally threatened as a result of the situation we find with the virus. So we'll keep the fight up, and I appreciate the opportunity to always be with you guys, and know we are going to keep pushing until we get a solution to this issue.
Congressman Tom Reed, thank you very much from New York's 23rd Congressional District, and Congressman Joe Morelli from New York's 25th Congressional District. Please stay on if you can, just for a few more minutes and just hear some of the issues. I want to go to Kathleen Rice now out of New York's Congressional District number 4, representing the great county of Nassau. Congresswoman Rice, Nassau County hit very, very hard. Your district, about 85% of the sales taxes collected in the entire state of New York are collected in the downstate region. Very hard hit economically, also very hard hit through the COVID-19 rate of infections, nursing homes, very tough impact in Nassau County, New York. What do you see from your colleagues across the United States? Is there hope here for us to get a state and local package as part of any resolution here?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with you all. And I keep forgetting that Tom Reed has me beaten by 2. I'm one of 10. So I totally get the way he was raised, believe me. And I really appreciate both Joe and Tom so much. You know, what we need right now are people like Tom, Republicans like Tom, and Democrats like Joe and me, to really get down and, you know, look to your community. I mean, as you mentioned, Nassau was hit incredibly hard, both from a COVID standpoint and lost revenue. I mean, there are no words. It's my understanding, I don't want to repeat too much what Tom and Joe have both said, but what it comes down to is a stalemate about unemployment insurance, which in my opinion is the only thing that has kept the economy going into a total depression, because it put money into the hands of people who were actually spending it to put food on their table and to keep a roof over their head, and aid to states and localities. The Republican proposal that states and, well, first of all, the CARES money that went to states or any municipality greater than 500,000 people, which helped all the states and basically the town of Hempstead, right? That's it. Nassau County got half the money they should, that Suffolk got, because the town of Hempstead took half that money. So for the Republicans to say, you know what, in the CARES Act, it said that you could use that money for COVID-related expenses only. You cannot use it to replace lost revenue. Now they're saying, well, okay, now we're going to let them use it for lost revenue. That doesn't help, because for Nassau County, that CARES money is already gone. They had to use it to pay the majority of the money, and Steve Bellone will say the same thing, went to pay frontline healthcare workers. There's no money left. So to say, you know, we'll allow you now to replace lost revenue with that money, that doesn't help. And it certainly doesn't help all of the municipalities that were under 500,000 in population, because they got nothing. They got bupkis. So, you know, in the HEROES Act, what it would do is it wouldn't cut any area out by population. You know, depending on your population would depend on how much you get. So that's number one. Number two, if I hear one more time that this is a blue state bailout, that is such BS, okay? Because Mitch McConnell, I don't know how that guy goes home. His state is, they're going to be, I mean, from a revenue standpoint, I mean, I just don't understand. And also, you're looking at a lot of states, you know, New York was the first one that had, you know, that suffered the most in terms of COVID positive cases and the impact on our healthcare system and our need for PPEs and testing and all that stuff. But guess what? Now that we're leveling out, and Cuomo just said, by the way, schools are opening in September, which is great in one respect, but it's not going to be great if we don't give them shielding and PPEs. We're going to find ourselves right back where we were in March. But right now, you have upwards of 30 states where New York was back in March and April. And the HEALS Act, it should have been spelled HEELS Act instead of HEALS, because McConnell's acting like a total heel on this. But it contained no money for testing. What the hell is that about? So excuse me for my frustration, but look, I'm hearing it every day from my constituents. So we need to, we need, and I will say, thank God for, Pelosi and Schumer are really holding strong on that state and local aid, because Republicans do not want to give it. And they only want short-term UI extension at a much lower rate. I mean, I just can't understand it. This is money that has kept the economy, to the extent that there has been even a remote recovery. That's the only thing that's kept us from going into a deep depression. So look, I'm still hopeful, because you gotta have a glass half full attitude. But I'm very grateful for all of you being on the call, and you need to amplify your voices with as many people as you can in Washington, because they need to hear it. I shouldn't be sitting in my district. Neither should Joe, and neither should Tom. We should be in Washington getting this done. Enough with, 4 people in a room trying to work things out. So thank you again so much for having us. Would love to answer questions or just hear your comments, because we're making sure that, we're speaking for you in Washington.
Kathleen Rice, Congresswoman from New York's 4th Congressional District, representing Nassau County, and I'll add, a former county official. Thank you for everything that you're doing. I think, to the members of Congress that are with us, you can look at the state of New York as really a microcosm of the United States. We have very urban populated counties and centers like New York City in the downstate region and Erie County in Western New York, but we also have many rural jurisdictions throughout the rest of the state. We are representative of the United States. We are unfortunately punished by the suddenness of the COVID-19 pandemic, how it hit the state of New York. Its impact economically to us is much more severe. We're very reliant on sales tax, whereas other states are more reliant on property taxes, perhaps have not felt that injury as much as we have in the state of New York. But I want to just give a unique perspective from 2 individuals here to talk about the international impact to the state of New York, and specifically the Canadian border. And I want to go to the Erie County executive, who happens to be a representative of the entire eastern United States, the Mid-Atlantic states, from the National Association of Counties, but also serves on the board of directors of the New York Association of Counties, and also serves as the Erie County executive, in addition to many other things that Mark Poloncarz has done. But Mark has been battling a severe economic injury because of the relationship with Canada. And I want to go to Erie County, and then I want to go to Clinton County, New York, and Plattsburgh, and hear from Michael Zerlo about that same issue, the international border being closed right now, and the impact to the counties of Erie and then Clinton. Mark Poloncarz.
Thank you, Stephen. And based on your description of me, I wear too many hats. I should probably get rid of a few of them. But I want to thank NYSAC for hosting this call. Thank the congressional representatives, Representative Reed from the 23rd, Representative Morelli, and Representative Rice for being on. It's good to see so many people I haven't seen in person in a while. And you are right. There is, of course, the direct response and the cost associated with it that we've all incurred. Some communities like Erie County received CARES Act funding, but the vast majority of counties in New York State have not, and have had significant costs associated with it. There's issues, of course, with regards to the economic impact. Right now, there are 30 million Americans without work. The unemployment rate, as released earlier today, is over 10%. It's still higher than it was at any time during the Great Recession of 2008 and 9. We really are reaching a point where we're going to probably, if we get another quarter of this, being into depression, and it's not going away. The impact, as I know, as the NACO representative for the Northeast, there are communities and counties like New York State in which we receive sales tax funding and we've been hurt, but there's other ones that rely on property taxes. There are others that rely on income taxes, and they're all impacted. And we in our community have also been hurt because of the loss of economic business with regards to the borders being closed, except for essential travel, which is basically goods that are being distributed back and forth between the United States and Canada. But there's a tremendous amount of economic benefit that we've lost as a result of the average citizen not being able to go from the United States to Canada, or for that matter, what we rely on a lot, which is Canadians coming into our community. I remind everyone that the city of Buffalo and Erie County is closer to Detroit than it is New York City. And it is very close to Toronto. It's basically the equivalent of what some people do to take a drive into work in the downstate region. And so the impact that we've had with regards to the border closures has been huge. We're facing deficits, of course, for 2021, which are in the 8-digit category. And even though we've taken drastic measures to address our deficits for 2020, we are still facing larger deficits for next year. And that's why we need federal government assistance. I hear it from my colleagues across the United States. The current president of NACO is Judge Gary Moore from Boone County, Kentucky. Gary's a Republican, and he's out there advocating with Mitch McConnell for Mitch to get out there, and Senator McConnell, I should say, to get out there and get a deal done, because they're hurting in Kentucky, just like they're hurting in Kansas, like they're hurting in Arizona, they're hurting in Mississippi, and we're hurting here in New York. This is not a political aspect. This is not a blue versus red. It should be a bipartisan effort, and I want to commend the congressional representatives who represent both parties for being on today. If we do not see federal action to address these issues, not only on the local governmental front, but the extension of unemployment benefits, I fear that we will be entering a depression, and it is wholly avoidable. Federal government can take action to prevent it. I request, and I'm glad that our New York delegation is fighting for it. I'm fighting on a national level with my colleagues across the United States to push for a bill. And we'll probably know in the next 48 hours if it's going to happen. And if it doesn't, we are all in serious trouble. And we'll just deal with it as best as we can, and hope in the long run that we get through this. Protecting lives is the most important thing and obligation that we have, is to protect the lives and welfare of our constituents, but also to ensure that along the way that we are promoting our economies as best as possible. And that's why we hope that the border will be open soon in the north area, and that the federal government will provide the assistance that we all need so that we can get on with the business of what we normally do in county government and local government. And I know if we can get that done, we'll be better for it. Thanks all.
Thank you, County Executive Mark Poloncarz, for all you're doing at the national level, Western New York, and for the state of New York. Michael Zurlo, Chairman Mark Henry in Clinton County. Michael, can you tell us about that same issue, the impact of a border being crossed, and why the members of the delegation that are here with us right now should care about that? I mean, you've got folks here from the New York congressional delegation that are about very, very far away from you, where Clinton County is. How can they advocate for you in Washington, D.C. about why this really matters?
Certainly. Well, thanks, Steve, and the NISAC team, obviously, for setting this up. President Barron, stay the course, my man. Yeah, we like Mr. Poloncarz, are a border community. We, however, are a rural border community. We are now hearing that border could be closed through 2020 and possibly into 2021. Over the years, we have strived through all our stakeholders up here to make that border as invisible as possible. You know, we relish the cross-border development in the international trade, and you know, when we see Quebec plates or Ontario plates down here, we all smile. That they are us. So the fact that border is closed and remains closed is devastating to us. You know, we rely on tourism a lot. You know, I also want to say before I go that, you know, this is also a bipartisan issue to us. You know, Senator Gillibrand was here. We're in contact with Senator Schumer. You know, Congresswoman Stefanik has talked to my board many times in his support of state and local aid. So I want to thank the congressional delegation that's on the call today for your efforts. Congressman Morelli has visited as the majority leader of the Assembly, Plattsburgh International Airport. Well, let me tell you, Plattsburgh International Airport, 85% of those traveling passengers cross the border to come here. So you can imagine the devastating impact on our local community. You know, we are doing our best. We are pulling up ourselves and we are marching forward. But each and every day we hear of another sour story of a restaurant or a a local business, small business, not being able to survive. Our campgrounds, our boaters, our marinas are struggling. So yeah, Steve, a massive impact on our community, especially because our reliance on sales tax is far greater than our reliance on the tax levy. So, we're working hard. I'm urging everybody to do everything they can. We are certainly here in Clinton County, along with our neighbors, our rural neighbors of Essex and Franklin County. So I just want to say thank you again. Thank you for our congressional leadership, and appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, thank you to the two border counties that we had join us today, and everybody else. I just want to remind folks that may not know the severity of the situation. In addition to the revenue crisis that's hit the counties very uniquely in the United States, there's also another aspect of that, and that is the cuts from the state of New York. Unlike the other states around the country, the New York counties stand to be cut anywhere from $600 million to $1.2 billion. That is just an issue that is beyond the capacity for the counties to make up. It's a double-edged sword here. We are cut by the lost economy, the high unemployment, and we're now being threatened to be cut by state reimbursement shifts from the state of New York back to the counties. Again, a very unique position. I'm hearing for the members of the delegation that are here and also our county officials that Speaker Pelosi is take on the current negotiations is she is focusing on the formula for the counties. If any new money is provided, along with fixing the current CARES Act situation remains fluid, and the calculus remains no deal. Better than a compromise to exclude us. So again, to the Democrat members of the New York delegation, it looks like our speaker in the House of Representatives is saying no deal without addressing the state and local issue. We're grateful for that position. If you could relay what you heard on today's call, I think it would go a long way. For members of the media that are here with us who have questions, please, if you want to type those questions in now, we'll take some questions from the media partners that are with us. Just type them in and we'll get to them. One of the first questions that we had came in earlier on, I don't really know who could answer this. I'll take a stab at it, but really is, if the governor is saying if he doesn't get $14 billion, he's simply going to shift that amount of money to local governments. And the question is, why is that a local government responsibility? Good question. We don't know the mindset of the governor. You'll have to ask the governor himself about that. Why isn't the governor cutting expenditures or seeking other methods to address the state's deficit instead of just simply shifting that problem, state budget deficit, to a local problem? It's not acceptable for local taxpayers to make up a state taxpayer shortfall. And so I guess that's the message that we would deliver back to that question. I don't know if anybody else here would like to comment on that, but we are definitely dealing with a very serious shortfall and shift from the state of New York. Congressman Morelli, did you want to react to that?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, this is a little bit like Sophie's Choice. I mean, there are no good options. And, Tom Reed's a dear friend, but I disagree with him on one point, which is when he says $3 trillion is unaffordable. I think the problem is without a significant response by the federal government in that, sort of that magnitude, it's not going to be possible to safeguard state and local governments. There's just not enough resources, which is why the HEROES Act is so large. And look, I recognize and appreciate concerns about the deficit. I think Kathleen and I, both at least as members of the House Democrats, are fiscally very attuned to that. But, this is, as I say to people, sometimes people say, well, let's wait until a rainy day. That's our rainy day fund. Or this is the rainy day, folks. This is a torrential downpour. This is the kitchen's on fire. I think the important thing to do is somehow put the fire out, then we'll figure it out. We're going to have to. So, you know, I think all of us understand in the immediacy of crises, you deal with what's in front of you today. And 2/3, as I recall, 2/3 of the state's revenues go back to local governments. So in the form of aid to cities, counties, but obviously the biggest contribution they make are to school districts and the state's portion of Medicaid, which obviously you have a significant percentage of as well. So I just think there's not enough space here. You can't make something up. You can't make it up. The state can't make it up. That's why we need a response that's much bigger than right now Secretary Mnuchin or Mark Meadows, the chief of staff, or apparently Senator McConnell, although it's not even clear he's in the room anymore. It sounds like it's really Senator Schumer, Speaker Pelosi, our former colleague Mark Meadows, who's now the chief of staff, and the Treasury Secretary. It sounds like there's probably not enough votes in the United States Senate without substantial votes from Senator Schumer and the Senate Democrats to get this done, even at $1 trillion. But I think if we do $1 trillion, it's going to leave a lot of pain on the table for everyone. There will be no shortage of pain for the unemployed, for local governments, for state governments, for all the people who benefit from them either directly or indirectly. That's why it's got to be so I think of the one point of disagreement I might have with Tom is that I believe a bigger response is necessary for us to get through this.
Thank you, Congressman. A quick question from Mallory Diefenbach from the Batavia Daily
Steve,
News.
if I could respond to that.
Oh yeah, please, Congressman Tom Reed.
You know, I have a huge respect for Joe Morelli, and we work very well together. And and what I'm stating is that this is all about finding common ground. And $3 trillion, my way or the highway, $1 trillion of state and local aid, is just not realistic. I'm not saying $1 trillion. I have been pushing our leadership. I have been weighing in directly, saying we need, and you know, I authored that $500 billion state and local aid package with Bill Cassidy and Menendez from New Jersey. And so, you know, I'm open, and I think people need to be reasonable as to what the number is. And I think the final package is somewhere in the range of 1.5 trillion, maybe a little higher for the different relief that is there. But I'll just tell you, when you put down a marker of $3 trillion and say, you know, this is the way it's got to be, one way or my way or the highway, you're not going to get anything done. And the people who lose in that are the American people, and you as county officials. And so if you can sense some frustration in my tone, I will tell you I'm very frustrated that it has to be my way or the highway, or look, we're winning politically, so let's just dig in and not have further conversations. And I just think we're at that point where they're going to just walk away from each other. And in the meantime, that puts a lot of you in very difficult positions. And no, I don't want that. And I'm going to continue to push our leadership, both sides of the aisle, and say to Congress, do your job. Congress, this is what we are supposed to do. And if you can't do it as the four corners of the leadership in the Senate and the House, then get the hell out of the way. And people that want to do it are willing to go in the room and negotiate this. If Joe and I were in the room, if Kathleen and I were in the room, I think we could get this done in a matter of a 24-hour, 48-hour period. And that's the way it should be, in my humble opinion.
Thank you, Congressman Morelli and Reed. Let's go to just a couple more questions here. If we could unmute Jerry Davis and Jay Gazelle. The question from a reporter is, what happens if the state of New York actually implements these cost shifts? What will the counties in your region of the state have to do if the state actually makes those cuts?
Steve, it's what we've already been doing, and I won't speak for Jerry or for the rest of my colleagues around the state like Mike per se, but what we've already done, Jack Marin in Ontario County, we've furloughed people. We start talking about laying off people. We've deferred capital projects. We've cut expenses out of our county budget to the tune of already about $2.2 million. We've looked at repurposing even the meager proceeds and declining proceeds from our sales tax in our county budget with regard to what can we do and put off, not just through the balance of 2020, but going into the 2021 budget, knowing the constraints we have with regard to where sales tax is not recovering, what's going on with the other revenue streams, and then taking the potentially significant hits to state aid of, for us, somewhere in the vicinity of at least $3 million additionally on top of all this pain we're already looking at. It will be the defenestration of county governments in the GLOW region, if not across the entire state of New York. And I sense, even in talking to Ariana before when we were in Albany, the city of New York also. So I think that's what we're looking at, dire. There is no, so to speak, safe ground or plateau here. This is the start of a descent that will just continue ad nauseum.
Jerry, do you want to add from the chairman of the board in Wyoming County, this is a farming community, heavy farming in Wyoming County, Western New York. What will that impact mean in your community?
Well, pretty much what Jay had said is what we're doing. However, we're unique because we're one of the 2 counties in the state that has a hospital.
Yeah.
And our hospital administrator, Joe McTurnan, has been working diligently to trim anything he can off from the hospital budget for this year and for next year. He's been quite successful in doing that. However, our sales tax right now is kind of holding its own. We're about even where we were last year. Don't really know exactly why, but with that, we're in fairly good shape so far. We're trying to make some cuts. We're trying to furlough some people, possibly. And it looks bleak if we don't get some relief, especially for our hospital.
Thank you, Chairman Davis. I guess that's all the time we have. I want to go one last commentary to the chair of the Tioga County Legislature, the president-elect of NISAC from Tioga County in the Southern Tier area, I believe in Congressman Tom Reed's district, Martha Salbray. Marty, do you want to give us a close here? We got a couple of members of the New York delegation. What message do you want to deliver to our bipartisan friends that are with us here that have taken the time today to bring a message back to the United States Congress?
Just certainly thankful that you're here to support us. And we just want to convey to our friends in Washington that they need to act, and they need to act now. We are trying to put budgets together, and we're going to be in sad straits if a decision isn't made. So I empower you to go forth and try to get people to agree so that we can all move forward from this.
Thank you, Chair. Shelley Stein. Mark, if we can include Shelley, just as a wrap up, a last message here to the members of Congress that are still with us. Again, a farming community, Genesee County, a farmer yourself. What is the impact of the farming community here, and what can they do to help?
So certainly the thing that we need to do is recognize that farms are an economic engine here, but we need the basic services of infrastructure. We need roads and bridges, and we need public safety. We need to be able to feed our communities, and we have job opportunities for folks. But I will tell you, without those basic needs, New York State will cease to be a choice for people to live here. And that is something that we want to avoid at all costs. This again is about keeping our communities healthy, keeping people safe, and to have it come down to whether it's a red or a blue issue. I've heard that it's not, but everybody here on this call has pointed fingers back and forth. Let's get over it, folks. Let's get our folks in our communities strong, healthy, so that we can come back vigorously. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
A real human impact. You're hearing from the New York officials from the state of New York. Of course, the HEROES Act appropriating $1 trillion, $500 billion for the states and $500 billion for the cities and the counties. That represents $1 trillion. The United States Senate proposal, $0. Going to be a wide gap between there to get across this bridge. You're hearing from the counties of New York who are uniquely situated. Congressman Morelli indicating the unique nature of the county role in the state and in this state of New York, different than the state of Nebraska. Some of the other states, even Florida, Texas, and California, has a different relationship with their counties performing. New York counties delivering all federal health and human services programs, administering food programs for the people, paying for that out of a local share to administer. Oftentimes, the New York counties and local taxpayers are paying the vast majority of the expenses for the administration of federal programs. We need help. We need you to stick to these formulas that try to drive funding into the counties. And that's the message from us here today. I want to thank you very much, everybody, for taking the time to spend with us here today. Very grateful for everything that you're doing for us down there. Let's hope you can get this done over the weekend and begin the voting of it next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. That'll conclude today's call. Thanks, everybody.